Welcome to another edition of Lifetime Cash Flow through Real Estate Investing. I'm Rod Khleif, and I am thrilled that you're here. Now, you know we're changing things up a little bit. We're not just doing apartments anymore. And so today I've got a couple of guys that are in the mobile home space, mobile home community space. So I've got Jason Postil and Tyler Lekas, and they are partners. And I'm going to interview Jason first, and then I'm going to interview Tyler because we don't have the ability to interview two people at the same time yet, although that's coming. And we're going to have a lot of fun today. So hang on to your hats and let's get into it. So Jason started his career in 2015. It looks like he was with Marcus and Millichap for a good bit in their multifamily division. And he handles acquisitions, and Tyler handles the ongoing asset management after the fact. Now, mobile home parks are quite a bit different as it relates to the asset management than, well, even the acquisitions, than multifamily. But I love the asset class. I know a lot about it, and I'm excited to have some fun with these guys. So welcome to the show, brother.
Hey, thanks for having us, Ron.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So why don't you do a much better job than I did in describing your background? I know you came from a baseball career and then Marcus, and but you know, give us a little more detail if you would.
Sure. Yeah. Well, yeah, my background, you know, I didn't have the real estate background. You know, my family, my dad had like one rental, right? I always heard horror stories, so I didn't really get that passion from there. But my background was baseball, right? So out of college, signed with Diamondbacks organization, played in the minor leagues for about 5 years, but I knew that chapter was going to close, right, at some time. So I always had a passion for real estate, and I actually heard a big leaguer with the Tigers at one of the pro camps say, he's like, guys, I didn't make my millions in baseball. It was owning 1,000 apartments in South Detroit. And I was like, bingo, okay. Because I always just, I don't know what it was. You know, walking Palm Beach, seeing the commercial real estate, just the buildings had gravitated towards it. So it was shortly after baseball, that's why I said, well, where do I start? Didn't really know. Thought brokerage was the route. Whatever it's worth for your listeners, that's not the case always, right? To get licensed, get your real estate license, that's not it.
Well, let me interrupt for 1 second. You know, I get a lot of people that ask me if they should get their real estate license, and I tell them, sure, if you're going to sell real estate, but not if you're going to invest. Mainly because you're held to a higher standard. You've got liability, unnecessary liability, in my opinion, because, you know, they're training you to protect the public, right? And so, but again, if you want to make commissions, for sure. Now, the other thing I'll say is I do think something like Marcus and Millichap is a fantastic framework for this business, because you learn how to underwrite deals. You learn how to not be afraid of picking up the phone and making cold calls. So I'm sure that's mind-numbing, but you got to do that. And so it's a great way to drum up business as well. Sorry, I keep going.
No, and that's it. And you know, the training, the resources, self-education. You know, at that time, I did get into residential. Found out residential wasn't it. It was more of an emotional side. Just want the buildings was what I wanted. So again, long story short, into the apartment brokerage, and then really just understanding that the commission check, chasing that wasn't what I always wanted. It was I was always chasing freedom.
You're only as good as your last deal.
That's it. And even from going back in school, you know, always trying to just have freedom, right? Not trying to be trapped in a job or in school. So that's what I realized, that, okay, chasing checks, I got to figure out this passive income side of it. And, you know, that's where I ended up going independent on my brokerage just to keep, you know, the active income going, and then took a pivot into the MH space where I met
mobile home park space, right?
Mobile home park space, and
you met Tyler.
That's where we met Tyler, and it was through a cold call, really. So you say picking up the phone, yeah, that's a great story, because going to what you said, your point on picking up the phone and calling, it's, you know, cold calling is not the easiest thing. It's probably the easiest thing you can do that most people just fear and can't do. So when I did go independent, and I was still calling on the brokerage side, he owned a park in Florida, Tyler did, and he actually hung up on my face first call, and I went into it was like awesome. I think maybe my first week, nobody knew OJB Capital, you know, Solutions, didn't know the name, right? And he's like, who the? And he literally hung up on my face, called him right back, and because I didn't get out what I wanted to say, right? So at least for me, it's just getting out what I.
You gotta have thick skin if you're gonna do that, and so you were like, screw it, I'm calling back.
Yeah, and you know, and yeah, one call can change your life, right? I remember my dad saying that. He was in sales, like fortune is in the follow up, and then one call can literally change your life, and so got out what I wanted to say. Ended up meeting, you know, for the first meeting as you're going towards.
So he put up with you on the second call.
Yeah, he heard something. Yeah, and he'll get into kind of how maybe he has a different spin on it. But yeah, it was more just because at that time I was actively selling, but I wanted to learn. And, you know, I'm not saying this because I'm here, but my first, it was your boot camp in 2017.
You went to my boot camp?
I did in Tampa.
Oh, no kidding.
And so I was at Marcus.
2017. Hold up. That was my first one.
Tampa.
First one ever.
Tampa.
That was my first boot camp ever. Just so you know, I don't know if you knew that.
I actually didn't know that.
Yeah, that was my first one.
Okay.
Wow.
Okay. It was amazing because,
thank you.
and again, not saying this because I'm here, but,
No, I
it was
appreciate
a
that.
big moment of just not being on the brokerage side and start hearing. Because at your boot camp, I heard a woman. She said, "Oh, you're apartment broker. If you find us a deal, we'll give you equity." And I'm like, "You guys are giving equity?" You know, I'm never hearing this stuff
Right.
in the boiler room, right?
Oh,
You're
sure.
just churning and burning. But yeah. So that was great, and that was a moment where it's like, okay, look, I don't need to wait till I'm 55, 60 to start doing my investing, and I can put the pieces together. And so that's where that was a big.
Yeah, so guys, they do work in basically a boiler room at Marcus and Millichap. I mean, it's phone calls. I mean, it's a great framework. You know, that kind of a business, or being in the finance side, the capital market side is great as well, or anything that construction, all these things are great frameworks for this business. And so, but then you went to my boot camp and somebody said, yeah, you bring us a deal, you can have a piece of it. Well, that's how it works, by the way. The fastest way to get involved with the team is to either bring the deal or bring the money.
Right.
That's the fastest way. And so, well, that's awesome. And so you guys met, and where are you at now? You how many spaces you got? What are you up to?
So yeah, so right after in 2020, in 2018 is
continue
really,
the story.
Oh,
sorry.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Well, that was really it. It was after that I started saying, look, we have the pieces, can find the deal, have a little capital on the sidelines, and just figured out, hey, you can do it. You can do it before waiting. But then, the cold call met, and it was really 2 years. It wasn't like, oh, we just met and then jumped in bed, with your partner. It's I'm not saying that doesn't happen, but it was about 2 years before we were here in Florida, and we just couldn't compete with these guys. This was in 18, 19, just compressed cap rates, record. It was just we just couldn't. And
you couldn't compete with the others that were buying these parks.
Yeah, cash, quick closing,
and so it took you a couple years to decide you were going to work together. Is that kind of how it worked?
Basically, and Tyler will tell his.
By the way, guys, you don't know this, but Tyler's sitting right next to him. He's not framed in the camera, so those of you watching on YouTube, he's right next to him, and they're going to switch seats here in a minute. And I hate that we don't have two mics right now, but he's nodding as this stuff's going on. But anyway, the reason I stopped you there for a second is that's really good, because it takes a while to make sure that a partner is going to be a partner, because a partnership's like a marriage, easy to get into and hard to get out of, okay?
Yeah.
And I have a resource, by the way. If you guys go to Rod's links, I have this book of questions you should ask before you get into a partnership, because you get caught up in the emotion of it. A lot of people move too quickly in this regard. And so I think it's really admirable that you guys took your time with it, is my point on that. Yeah.
Yeah, and we took our time when we get asset. Why did it take so long?
Right.
Well, he had already owned a park. I didn't own anything other than
Right.
a house yet. I'd just been on the brokerage side selling deals, so I was understanding the space a little bit. But it was, again, not compete with the cap rates, the due diligence, the time periods.
Well, what I mean, it's just, you could have moved forward by yourself and still dealt with those things. What made the alliance help solve those particular issues? Because I don't know that it would. I think
that's a good question. Yeah, because once we got the first deal, it was like we snowballed, 16 deals in 36 months, right?
You bought 16 deals in 36 months.
36.
Holy crap, guys!
And it snowballed, and it was fine. Well, first the partnership. I think it was feeling each kind of part. He was doing it full time. I was doing it full time. Other than I had the brokerage, but we were in this full time together, which is hard to find a lot of times.
Right.
You're doing it weekend.
A lot of people do it on the side, and a lot of people are very successful on the side. That's another thing. Sorry to keep interjecting, but as you say something, if there's a teaching moment in there, I want to throw it in. And that is, I get people all the time that say, should I quit my job and do this full time? And my answer is always no, okay? Because if fear pops in, because unless you've got a big nest egg, like you've probably had some resources from you've got money coming in from your brokerage. By the way, guys, he owns a real estate brokerage, but you had money coming in from that, and you probably had some money left over from your baseball career. And so if you've got a nest egg or you've got income, that's a different story. But if you go cold turkey, I say no, because if fear is paralyzing, and if you get caught up in financial fear, you're going to have a problem, because you'll literally be paralyzed.
That's it.
Yeah.
Exactly. And finding the right partner is tough too. And yeah, for the guys that are working, it's not impossible. You're right. It's just finding guys that are aligned. Maybe your other partners are working too. It's just so it did take a while, and then we had a broker relation that had a wild hair in Little Rock, Arkansas. So we said, okay, less competitive market, but we liked what was going on. We looked more into the market, and then we, in 2020, got our first 68 site park. And it was a 2-park little mini portfolio, and then it caught fire. And then,
what's the smallest park you have?
18 sites.
Wow.
18 sites.
So because my framework and my mindset has always been from my limited experience, although I studied it a lot. I didn't actually buy any parks. My brother's huge in it, but is that you kind of need 40 or 50 spaces so you can have on-site management. Otherwise, you're doing the freaking management. Is that an accurate statement?
1,000%.
Okay. All right. So what's the minimum you would recommend? 50?
We talk about new markets going into, because right now all Arkansas. So this under 750
all of these
units.
are in Arkansas. Wow, you guys killed it in Arkansas.
Every one of them. Yeah, we are one of the largest private. He's like, oh, that's like saying we're the richest man in a homeless shelter. But it's
so you're one of the largest in Arkansas.
Just under 1,000 sites. Yeah, just under 7. But we've strung together those small to mid-size, and I've heard you talk about those. We're under the institutional guys. They don't care about anything under 2, 3, maybe arguably 500 units, right? So the private guy, though, taking down a 40 site, that might be a little over his head. So we've really been able to do that.
So you're in a little bit of a sweet spot, like between 40 and 100 or whatever, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So that 18 site, to your question on what's the smallest, that was also part of a 5-park portfolio.
Oh,
so that was really 117 total units within a 3-mile radius.
Okay, so one manager can handle, or one manager with an assistant or whatever. Okay.
That's right.
Got it. Okay. So let's talk about mobile home parks in particular, and although I know the answers, my students won't, my listeners won't. So what are the most important things you look at when you're evaluating a park?
So yeah, and that's a really good one with mobile home parks. So our model is the tenant-owned homes. So if you're looking at a broker package, and again too, I'm still a broker, right? So I'm going to say some things. People are like, oh yeah, he's crapping on brokers. Well, no, we do it. We're a brokerage, so we have to sell deals. Well, what sometimes investors don't realize is that park-owned home income is a lot higher, but if you sell it off, that income goes away.
So let's talk about. Let me elaborate on what you just said. So on a mobile home park, you can own the homes, these mobile homes on the park, or you can let the residents own them and just pay rent. There is no greater brain damage, in my opinion, than having park-owned homes. Okay, these mobile homes are not the best constructed things on the planet, number one, so they break down very easily. That demographic is probably the toughest, lowest demographic in the United States as far as renters. So if you own the homes, first of all, they have no pride of ownership, like they might if they do own the home themselves. So would you agree that one of the best business models, if you find a bunch of park-owned homes in a complex, is to convert them and sell them to the residents? Is that an accurate statement?
Yes.
Okay. So that's a critical piece. I was actually looking for something else. What else do you look for when you look at a park?
The utilities are a big one.
The utilities, thank you. That's
one of the biggest.
The infrastructure, the utility infrastructure is huge.
Huge.
Right. So, if you want to elaborate on that a little bit.
Yeah, so out of the 16 communities right now, there's private utilities being septic tanks, wastewater treatment plants, lagoons, right? There's
do you own lagoons?
We do not.
Oh, I was going to say. So, by the way, guys, there's mobile home parks where you literally have a lake that's a pool of shit that it's called a lagoon, okay? And then you also have mobile home parks that's got these treatment plants that can be extremely expensive to replace or repair. So that's a real red flag. And some of the old ones also have, so you got to be real careful with well and septic and really well and wastewater treatment solutions, whatever they are.
Sure.
Obviously the ideal is to have city-owned water and sewer, correct?
That's right.
Right. You stay away from lagoons, and if you do get a treatment plant in your asset, you better have it checked out like really well before you pull the trigger, right? Have you ever had to replace one? No.
Okay. And we have one property that has private. There's septic, so there's 10 septic tanks.
Okay.
We went through due diligence on that.
See, that's another thing though. If you've got like one big septic for a larger community and that has a problem, that's a big deal. Or worse than that probably is a well. If you're on a well and you have to test them and all that stuff. And I know Kevin, we talked about Kevin Bupp, who's a good friend of mine. You guys visited with him yesterday. He's also big in the mobile home space. In fact, they're taking on a big one right now. Yeah, my brother's helping him. And so you know, he always likes to have an alternative solution for the utilities just in case something goes wrong. Like if you're on well and septic, see what it would cost to tie into the city. I mean, you guys on the same framework there?
Yeah, we always like to have an idea. Oh, it's 200 yard or whatever that
distance?
The distance if to tap into it.
Right.
For instance, the one property we have right now, the only property that has the septic private utilities, we bought land next door because we asked, and in county it was kind of like the Wild Wild West right now, but it might not always be. So they might say, oh, do whatever you want, but there might be a day, right? So they just said, well, as long as you have the capacity to put more tanks in. So we bought the land next door. So
just
now we
case.
can roll just in case.
Right.
And we're actually looking to develop that. Another side, no, we're not developers, but you know, we bought it for one reason, but it has some upside.
No, that's great. That's great. Win-win. Yeah, but so that's what I was looking for is you know, with a multifamily apartment complex, you don't, you know, it's always going to be on water and sewer, and you don't have to, it'll be public and whatever, or it'll be private, but you're not going to have to worry about it. Unless, you know, the only caveat to that would be if you buy an apartment complex that has a chiller, like for a building, those can be 100 grand or more. But mobile home parks, that's the biggest. So what else, when you're evaluating a mobile home park from a financial standpoint, you know, doing your underwriting, what sorts of things do you want to make sure you don't miss when you're doing your underwriting and evaluating the numbers on a park?
Yeah, so the lot rent, again, going back to that, is if the deal can stand on its own with the lot rent, depending on how much we have
then
to
it's
infill,
a deal.
then it's a deal.
Because you'll see income that has all that park-owned rent, but you're going to try to eliminate that, which of course is going to be higher than lot rent, but higher on the income side, but also way higher on the expense side.
Exactly.
Right? Yep. Now, if you just have lot rent, your expenses go way down because then you're just landscaping, you're paying for utilities unless you back bill those or whatever.
That's it.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, and that's why I want to back up to that point again, because the brokers have put that is still real income, but lenders, there are some we've heard now starting to lend on some park-owned home, but traditionally they don't want to see more than 25%
park-owned
homes. So you have to understand if there's an exit. You know, we always want to refi and hold on. That's our kind of business model. So we always make sure we have that exit. But
so evaluating a park, I just want to make sure we've covered everything. We talked about the utility infrastructure. We've talked about park-owned versus resident-owned homes. Have you had any run-ins with local municipalities trying to buy a place? Because they love mobile home parks. That's sarcasm, by the way, guys. Major sarcasm.
Some people ask, "Oh, what's your the most horror
story?"
Right? Yeah. And I mean, the horror story, it was quick and over, but it was right after we closed on it. And we do due diligence of how many how many certified sites are allowed to get there, I had to call down to the city for something the day of closing.
Pull the mic a little closer so they hear you because you're speaking softly.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I called down the day of closing, and the woman's like, "Oh, your park's condemned." I almost threw up. As I was telling him, I just almost threw up. It was just like, condemned? What do you mean? Because I heard about that. Oh, the cities are taking over it, or the A-class.
Oh, so they claim they're going to take over the park.
Yeah, and then she said, but because they were in a couple of the park, I mean, the cities hate them most. Can't say this for everybody, but where we were,
most of them hate them.
They'd rather see it. Just bulldoze it, put up a nice A-class building, and just it's better for the city or what they think. But we have ran into that. But what they did start noticing, and
how'd that work out, by the way?
Well, I said, there's no way. We have the certified sites. Then she said, well, no, it's showing this. So then I called someone else, and then we had done the gotten the certified sites and said we're grandfathered in and went through it. So it was just a little scare, but it does happen. Yeah, sure. And it for sure happens.
Well, let me ask you this. I'm sorry to derail and shift gears again. Do you guys look at any of these with the possibility of a different use?
We we haven't.
So you haven't got any like inner city ones where the highest and best use could be something better than a mobile home park?
We haven't yet, unless if there's a billboard we can put in, or maybe there's some land for a cell phone tower. But no, we haven't looked at it.
I've got some here down on Tamiami Trail. I mean, that is prime freaking real estate. Yeah. You got a mobile home park. Hell, the retail value alone will likely eclipse the value of the mobile home park. I'm just curious.
Sure.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
So what have we missed here? We talked municipality, utilities, and income. So how do you finance these things? Because it's different than multifamily in many cases.
Yeah. So what happened? We've done from owner finance. I mean, right now with where the interest rates, we're still getting deals done, and that's a big reason why owner financing.
Yeah.
And our first deal, the 68 unit, was an owner financing. So we did, though, from the next seven local banks. So what happened was nobody wanted to finance an 18 unit or a 34, or it was
a
under
reason.
$1 million.
That's what we call a clue. Okay.
Well, yeah. Well, and that's right. The clues. Right. And because I've heard guys say it too. Oh, I just flip it to 3 lenders and they're my underwriter, and then I can pass on the deal or not. Well, we see these deals where the lenders won't lend on them, but all we need to do. We had one park. It was $90 lot rent. If you can believe anybody in America is living for.
Wow.
And market, we went just to 250. The market was 350. So we were still even under market. And yeah, that was a good. I mean, we refinanced.
I want to talk about rent increases in just a second here, but
Okay.
oh gosh, I feel like we were going down a path somewhere. Oh, financing. So
Yeah,
so
sorry,
we
I was
talked about
taking that way-
financing.
way
Yeah.
sideways.
So seller financing and bank financing is huge. Also want to talk about marketing, but let's talk about
local
rent
banks.
increases because. You know, I don't know if you heard about Kevin's horror story, but he raised. You heard, yeah. Tyler's nodding. So he raised the rents on a park. He made the cover of the local paper, and I think he made national news actually over it. So have you guys had any run-ins like that?
We've had people. I mean, just calling it threatening with attorneys.
Okay,
but
all right,
no,
but,
yeah,
okay,
no,
but
no
nothing,
national news,
no publicity.
No,
That's
no
the worst.
publicity. No.
Yeah, Kevin. Oh, it was horrible for him. But you know, it's over and it's past. But you know, the thing about mobile home parks, guys. Well, so what makes? I'll let you answer. So what makes rent increases on mobile home parks different than apartment complexes?
So, what makes?
I'm looking for something here. I'm trying to the cost for them to leave.
Oh yeah, the cost for them to leave. It's $3,000 to $5,000 to move their home.
To move a mobile home park.
So
yeah. you kind of got them locked. You kind of got them a little over a barrel is what I was looking for.
Right.
Here. You know, because if they own the home and you know, you bump their rent up $100 and it's going to cost them $5,000 to move their home to another park. You know, it's you know, that's an easy decision.
Oh yeah, we're never the leader either. It's
Right.
not like we're just to the point
Right.
I'm going from 90
so
to 100.
you're not pushing the rents beyond what the market is.
No,
Okay.
no, and now we control a big. I mean, just in Little Rock, we control most of that market. So there,
Right.
any park, we're right there. So,
Gotcha.
But when they see what we have noticed, of course, they'll complain. We haven't made the news, thank God. But
Yeah.
you know, the $90, they hadn't raised it in 15 years. So
Right,
most
right.
of them will realize, okay, this is normal. We can't go anywhere else. They see us put in paving.
What
new
is the?
roads.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Yeah, you're making improvements.
We
They
do.
see you're making it nicer.
Yeah.
What's the average rent on a single wide versus a double wide in Little Rock, Arkansas?
So the lot rent.
Lot rent. Sorry,
The
lot rent.
is we average 350. And this is central. So double wide or not, it changes if we're leasing it with an option to purchase, but the lot rent's
350.
350.
350.
We get to
So
Fayetteville, those are maybe a little premium,
little more than
$500 lot
okay,
rent.
so
different.
500. Okay,
500. But
yeah. So just so you guys realize, you know, if they own the home that they paid $5,000, $10,000, $20,000 for, all they're paying is $350 a month plus some utilities. Yes,
That's it.
That's it. It's pretty damn cheap rent.
That's it.
Right.
And their car payments, a lot of time we've had
It's more. Right.
Right. And they appreciate the new roads because
Right.
we've had some people, oh, you're hiking rent. Some guy said that before, like, oh, how do the families feel when you make their rent go up? We're like, well, they're actually appreciate because we're taking over from a mom and pop that hasn't done anything in 20 years.
Right.
And so we come in, put new roads in, trim trees so they're not falling through their homes, and they appreciate it and see it. It's not a huge push.
Sure. So now let's talk about how you find these deals. If you're willing to give up a little secret sauce here. I mean, I know what I did when I was going to get into this business, and I'll just tell you, I learned from Kevin actually, and I had 8 virtual assistants combing the country, basically marking down every single mobile home park in the country. They'd go on Google Earth, they'd see where a mobile home park, and then they'd fly around to find ones that weren't even in the system because they were miscategorized.
Wow.
Then they would geocode them, find out who the owner was. You can put an overlay on Google Maps, see who the owner was, and then we would get their home mailing address and phone number. And I did this in the whole country. I had 8 VAs do it for a year, and then I ended up not doing it. And I ended up, I can't say what I did with the list, but I did something with the list. But anyway, Yeah. So is that something similar to what you guys do?
That's exactly it.
Okay.
And I know, I mean, Tyler, there's a lot of overlap still, right?
Right.
I mean, we're two-man band in this thing, like
Right.
you wouldn't believe, wearing
Right.
a million hats. So there's a lot of overlap. But, and it's funny you say go fly over and look for parks, because there are parks in some of these states for sure.
And they're
Arkansas being one.
miscategorized.
Right, miscategorized. They're not going to be on your CoStar, so the
Right.
brokers all over the nation aren't going to be
Or they're
hammering them.
miscategorized in the county offices even. They're
Right.
called something else. It's crazy. But so we'd find them by just doing the Google Maps thing.
And we absolutely there's websites, free websites that people, because that was the only thing really I wanted to know on the brokerage side that residential wasn't ever show you, is how do you drive by a building, find the owner who owns that, and get him on the phone, actually know what to say to get a meeting with him. That was all. And so there's so many ways to do it. And we have lists, but yeah, Tyler's literally been driving. He's lives in Arkansas, so he goes through, and he'll just drive by a park, be like, we've never seen this on the map, and then he shoots me an address. I'll call him, then he's meeting him the next day or something.
No
So
kidding.
we're still very
Finding
active.
parks. Still finding parks.
Yeah, we
Wow.
did the VA and had cold call, and then
Right.
it's just. But when we buy a park and we get on the phone, one of us, and just we own next door, it's just such a different call that
Right.
we haven't been able to train yet.
Right.
I can't rope Tyler into that, but
What'd you say?
I can't rope him into that. I was going to say I haven't trained. We could train a VA to say whatever we want, but
Yeah.
it's
it's better when it's the
tough.
principal.
Yeah,
It's because you never know what they're going to respond with. But
and it's been a direct call. Yeah, that's how we've been doing it.
So let's shift for a minute and talk about positive stories and a couple of war stories, or one of each. Whatever if comes to mind here. In that, a great experience that you had, and a not so great experience. So start with whatever one you want.
Okay, we'll start with the horror story, because
Okay.
the best one so far has been our last year we had our largest deal, 122. That was a good one.
Well,
So
let's talk about the war story first.
But yeah, so earlier you talked about the conversion of the park own.
Right, to convert park owned to resident owned, so you're just collecting lot rent, and you've got
Yes.
an easy management asset. Right.
Yep, and that's been our model. So that we had a 33 site park that it had a little commercial building up front, but it was all park owned. So it was the first
the park
one that
owned all the homes.
all of them. And so we hadn't dealt with that yet. So we said, okay, we're going in. We're going to give them, because you can happy birthday, Merry Christmas, give them away, or force them to buy, or not force them to buy, but I'll say, here you go.
So just let me slow you down a little bit so they understand. So yes, sometimes you can just give them the home and let them start paying lot rent, but you're responsible for all the maintenance, upkeep, everything else.
Yep.
And that can be a win on a really old home, I would suppose. But the second thing is you can also finance them, right? And that's the most common, wouldn't you agree? Where they're paying lot rent plus they're paying a payment towards their home.
Exactly.
Correct? Okay.
Exactly. And now we have different option, which is a way more graceful
So there's
way of doing
financing
it.
available now as well?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, yeah, their option, they'll put a small down payment and then
Right.
have 72 months or
Okay.
whatever many months. But we gave them one option at this 33 that this is their lot rent, this was what their payment was going to be, which really wasn't changing a whole lot from what they were already paying just as a rental. And I don't know if it was just because they saw.
So you basically told all 33 people, here's new sheriff in town. Here's what we're willing to offer. Take it or leave it. And what happened?
And 50% left the park.
50%
I mean,
left.
it's like a number. You hear people like, "Oh, you buy a park, right?" You hear single family. You got one
Right.
door, 100% vacant, one lot.
Right.
Having 33 and 50% goes by. That's
painful.
That's bad, and
Yeah.
it was painful. Which is now one of our best performers, but it was a wake up.
What
like,
was bad is you
don't-
probably had 50% in shitty condition that you had to go in there and
Yeah,
remodel,
yeah.
and before you could re-rent them, sell them, whatever. That
was
was
it.
probably the biggest pain, is all that maintenance work. You got.
Exactly.
Right.
And then realizing, oh, okay, well, we didn't raise maybe
Enough money.
enough to do the cost, or the
Right.
cost went up in that time. So it was
Right.
Yeah, it was a lot of lessons learned in that
Okay.
that one.
All right.
So that's
that's a good one. That's a good horror story.
Yeah.
So what would you have done differently, knowing what you know now, just out of curiosity?
the options, just coming
Yeah.
graceful, like
Yeah.
not saying, hey, this is it, or you're
Right.
out of time. Just
We want to work
hey,
with you.
yeah,
We've got
we're on the same
multiple
team.
options. I know you'd love to own your own home. We want to make it
Yeah.
as easy as we can. Blah blah blah. Got it.
Exactly,
A little better
yeah.
sales process.
We want to help provide, home ownership and just a much more graceful
Right,
entry
graceful,
there. Yeah, It was-
compassionate, yeah,
and that's
okay.
worked now. So we have done that.
Okay.
That would have been the
Okay.
route.
Well, listen, I appreciate this, Jason, and let's give Tyler a shot at bat.
Yeah,
for lack
Tyler's
of a
saying
better,
the best,
better,
the good
better
story.
metaphor.
He'll tell the good story.
Well,
Yeah.
Tyler's up to bat, for lack of a better metaphor. So we got Tyler Leckus up now, and Tyler does more of the asset management. Sounds like you're also involved in the acquisitions. If he calls you to go talk to an owner and put it, negotiate a deal, put it together, right?
Yeah.
But why don't you tell a little bit of your story before, meeting Jason and all that?
Yeah, so I started out in finance. So I was I traded fixed income at a couple of different places. I started out in the retail side, so I was a financial advisor. So I came from the same grinding sales background that Jason did. I made 29,000 phone calls my first year as a financial advisor. Wow. I was in there 7 days a week, and there was nothing that was going to get me off the phone. So that's kind of how I built my background, and then I kind of moved up the rungs there a little bit, and I ended up trading fixed income for some banks and hedge funds and mutual funds and stuff like that.
So sales background.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. And then I ended up starting to work like 120 hours a week. I was in the office at 2:30 a.m. I was trading different markets, blah 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 blah. And then I was leaving at like 9 o'clock at night. So I was like, "There's got to be."
That's a life there, boy.
Yeah, I know,
wow.
right? I got big and fat, and it was terrible. So I was like, "There's got to be a different way." So my dad ended up sending me a article about mobile home parks. And he basically just put a little snippet at the bottom. It said, "Hey, you're smarter than all these real estate guys. They're pretty stupid at running cash flows. You should run circles around them." Obviously, talking kind of tongue in cheek. And so I started looking at the asset class. A couple months later, about 6 months later, I quit my job. Ended up starting to look into buying mobile home parks. I ended up buying my first park down in 2018, and then met Jason in 2019. And I just wanted to. Also, just add one little flavor to that story.
To that
he
phone
told.
call, that initial phone call, yeah.
Yeah. So I had a couple of beers with my buddies, and so when he called, I ended up telling him to F off. I hung up the phone.
Oh, no kidding! You left that part out. Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
So he calls back.
Right.
And I was like, because I was in the sales side, right? I was like, I like this guy.
Okay.
Yeah. I picked up the phone. I was like, this guy's got some snodes here,
right,
And
right.
so and then and Jason and I kind of got together because I mean, a lot of people these days are like, oh, Tyler, or Tyler and Jason, you guys have done so well, blah blah blah. But I spent every nickel I had on that park in Florida.
Okay.
And
I didn't know it was in Florida. I thought
it was.
Okay, where in Florida?
Titusville, Florida.
Okay. That's a small town.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And so I was Ubering, and I was doing a courier service where I was transplanting hearts and skin all around the state of Florida.
Wow.
Because I didn't have any money. So Jason was like, "Hey, I got some capital. I can continue to help you kind of grow the business." And a lot of people, again, they see one thing, and there was
No, it's
something
important.
Totally different.
It's important. You see this duck floating on the water. You don't see the legs underneath or the flippers underneath going like crazy.
Yeah.
And everybody thinks that this success story is like what they see on Instagram, and they don't realize that there are a lot of sacrifices you have to make. Are you guys both single, by the way?
Yes.
Single. Okay. So no kids.
Jason's
daughter.
You have a daughter. Okay.
Yeah.
But you guys actually didn't have other work. Now, I've got my students own somewhere between 180 and 190,000 units that we know of at this point. And that was my first event, by the way, the one you went to. So I'm real proud of that. And a lot of do it on the side. So, you don't have to do this full time. But you guys did, and look at you. You're killing it now. And so, anyway, were you done with your story?
Yeah. Oh, basically, long story short,
yeah.
we met, and then we tried to go buy all these deals together. And what really built our and because I looked at your Rod Links, and I looked at that partnership questionnaire that you guys have.
Oh, you good.
And we never filled something out like that.
Right.
But the main thing that drew Jason and I together is that we said at 70. We want to own 10,000 of these mobile home park units.
Love it.
And we want to buy and hold and refi and do what's best for our investors.
Right.
Period. End of story.
Right.
And we'll go and I work pretty hard. I pride myself on my hard work because if you're not smart, you got to be a hard worker, right? And Jason has consistently outworks me. So what I mean. That's also what brought us
work
together.
ethic is good.
Work ethic.
That's a critical
and aligned
question
goals.
when you're looking at a partnership questionnaire.
Yeah.
So by the way, it's Rod's Links, and there's that partnership book there if you're thinking about getting into this business. And I'll add a caveat to that book, and that is trust your gut. Okay, your intuition is incredibly powerful. Trust it. If it doesn't feel right, something's off. Your brain picks up on these micro nuances you're not consciously aware of. So you guys are now on track to continue purchasing hundreds of units. Let me ask you this question. You know, as this economy gets tougher, you know, that demographic is getting killed. Okay, because I mean, I'm single now, and I went and bought some groceries, and I was standing there with the clerk. I'm like, 150 for that? Are you freaking kidding me? How do people afford this? And she just shook her head. And gas cost me $120 to fill up my truck. I'm like, that's almost that's more than the lot rent used to be on that place you bought.
Yeah,
so it's like,
yeah.
how do you know? And so, are you seeing this economy impact your collections because of inflation and everything that's happening right now? I'm just curious. Is it?
Yeah, no. So we have a really, again, when it's tenant-owned homes, when it's park-owned homes, and we do another kind of a financing for either homes we've renovated or new homes that we bring into the property.
Bring in new homes, right? If you've got spaces without a home on them, right?
Yeah, like a rent-to-own, right? So they put a little deposit down, and then they pay a rent-to-own for 60, 84 months, whatever it is.
Right.
But that tenant-owned home income is very sticky because basically, if you can't pay $350, you're on the street.
Yeah.
So will you drop that notice to vacate out after they miss a month of rent? Because we're not a bank. We're not
You're not a charity either.
Exactly.
You know.
And they pay. And it's very sticky. And the unfortunate thing and the reality of our business is if they ended up leaving that home, the home's usually in decently good shape. You can usually either give it away and there's no break in the income, or they go out and sell it, right? And then a new renter comes in and there's no break in your income stream.
Oh, interesting.
So and so that lot rent is super sticky. So again, we had 98% collections through COVID.
Wow. Fantastic.
And it was it's a very sticky
Did
asset.
they get rental assistance like we did on our multifamily? Did you see them go and get assistance?
Not that
they weren't sophisticated enough. Yeah. We had our on-site managers and stuff line these people up. I mean, we got hundreds of thousands in COVID rental assistance. I thought that was going to be the catalyst. I really did. I thought that was going to be the shit hit the fan moment, and it wasn't. I even did a YouTube video, got like 90,000 views, and got a lot of hate. You're such an idiot. You don't know what you're talking about. 'Cause I'm like, it was titled the coming crash of whatever year that was, and I was dead wrong.
They dumped $10 trillion into the market.
That does help a little bit.
I mean,
which is why we have inflation.
Yeah.
But anyway, so okay.
Yeah.
And so you buy these now. There's something to be said when one of the wealthiest guys in the world owns one of the largest manufacturers of mobile homes. What's the name of the company?
Clayton Homes.
Clayton Homes. Yeah. And there's some great quotes that he has around the mobile home park business. But did he also own parks as well? Or
he did.
He owned a bunch of parks. Yeah.
Yeah. There was an interesting article that your listeners can look up. But he ended up basically snapping up in central Washington like 13 communities, and then he ended up raising the lot rent like 350% in one go. Wow. And he basically took away all the affordable housing in that area and made a monopoly.
Wow.
And it's kind of interesting because it's in between, it's in central Washington, right above Oregon, and there's just kind of this coastal range that cuts off, Seattle, not coastal, but there's an inland range that cuts off Seattle from kind of inland Washington. So what you see there, you got to go over that mountain range to kind of get back to Seattle and back to the coast there, and there's nothing before you get to Idaho.
Wow.
So he knew that.
He just eliminated all the affordable housing.
Yeah, and he knew the apartment rents are so much higher, so they couldn't go there, right? So he ended up just jacking them up, and he got a bunch of newspaper articles. I think that was in 2013.
He got some hate, but
and he ended up exiting. Yeah, because he was like, I don't need this publicity, right?
Oh wow!
But it was
interesting.
Yeah, for the guy that wants 90% income taxes, he's about making money.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
Well, he's a smart guy. He just lost his partner recently.
Yeah.
Okay. So now let's talk about. I was going to say asset management. I was going to say brain damage. It kind of asset management / brain damage as it relates to mobile home parks. I know this business quite well because this is exactly what my brother does with Kevin Bupp's portfolio.
Right.
He works with Kevin and owns a bunch of parks and has owned parks forever. And so talk about some of the things that come up. When you own a park versus, they'd hear what happens with multifamily. So let's talk what happens when you own a park. Some of the things some good, bad, ugly, we talked a little bit about it already with Jason about the fact that if they don't pay, they either move the home or they lose it.
Right.
And by the way, when that happens, if they're on the bill of sale on the title for that home, there's like a repossession process, right, that you have to go through of some sort. Is it state specific or?
Yeah, it is state specific.
Okay.
But 50,000-foot view.
Okay.
Either you need to go through the abandonment home process.
Okay.
Or you've got to evict them. You get the writ for the house, and then
Okay.
you get a bonded title.
Bonded title.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
you get a bonded title.
And
Yeah.
and the length of time on that's typically a couple months or what?
Yeah, it's usually 120 days for the bonded title.
Okay.
The abandonment home process is usually like 80 to 90 days.
Okay. All
Yeah.
right. So 3 months, you're back to square. You're back there. Okay.
Mhm.
So talk about on the asset management side, the sorts of things that you deal with owning a mobile home park.
Well, yeah, I want to make a disclaimer to
Okay.
your listeners as well that we bought in one of the highest murders per capita.
Yeah, Little Rock's got a bad reputation.
Yeah,
For that.
and so when we took over these properties, were heavy turnarounds.
I see.
And so the problems we dealt with when we first bought them and the problems we dealt with now are two different problems.
Okay. Well, let's talk about what you dealt with when you first bought them.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I own properties in Memphis, and I would equate them to East Memphis.
Yeah, Memphis is worse.
Yeah. Well, okay. Fair enough. Fair enough.
Yeah.
So what? So you had drugs, you had all sorts of things to deal with, yes?
Yeah. So when we first took over a property called Opal Estates. I went in there with a vest, I had my AR in the back.
You had a vest.
Yeah, oh yeah,
Wow.
whole 9 yards. We ended up tearing down 3 houses. One was a drug house, one was a brothel.
You had to actually remove them completely.
Yeah, because the houses were just they weren't savable.
Okay.
There was another property we went into where we evicted one of the 18 spacers. Actually, we evicted 80% of the residents in there.
Wow.
And when I served a woman with an eviction notice, she didn't like that very much, and she took a roundhouse swing at me and then fell down her steps and chased me out of the park. And another resident spit on my car as I sped out of the park. I hightailed it out of there. So,
Wow. You mess with me, you mess with the whole trailer park.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Yeah. You got Brian Urlacher over here. Then you got the wide receiver that's running after me down the street. I mean, it's anyways, it was pretty. Yeah, we had some real interesting stories.
Wow.
And
so how did you turn it around? You evicted everybody. Yeah. What did you do from a crime prevention standpoint, if anything, in these parks?
Yeah, so what we did is really when we got rid of the bad characters,
right.
We started doing a lot of really heavy background and credit checks. We started infilling these parks with a lot of new homes.
Okay.
It completely turned the tenant base around.
Gotcha.
And then you never let your foot off everybody's neck. If somebody breaks a rule day one, you go through and you hammer them.
Right.
And that's the only way to do it, because once there's one person breaking the rules, it's a cancer.
They get a little crack in the door, they bust it open. Yeah,
exactly.
It's different than multifamily, because in multifamily you buy an asset. When you've got crime prevention, you're going to throw in like we've got an asset that we're buying right now in San Antonio, 200 doors. It's a mile and a half away from another asset, and there's not a real crime issue there. But we're going to put in lighting, enhanced lighting, security cameras. We might even gate it. It's already got some fencing around it, and just look at lines of sight to make sure there's no places people can get jumped. But lighting is a big thing. Cameras are a big thing. So there's some things you can do that you can afford to do in a mobile home park that you really can't in a multifamily, that you can't in a mobile home park. So you turn these around, you bring in new homes, they see you're cleaning it up, you get rid of the riffraff, and then you turn them into resident-owned homes. What other sorts of things pop up on the asset management side? Yeah,
so after that kind of gets done, a lot of people don't take care of their homes. So the house will start turning green, right? So we've got a big initiative right now that we've sent out to all of our residents, basically saying, hey, look, for $100,
we'll pressure wash it?
Pressure wash it, exactly. Gotcha. And we're losing money on that, but it's like, hey, look, it's a good gesture to the community. Hey, we'll paint your house for $500.
Wow.
Those sorts of things that we're sending out to people to basically say, look, we're not here.
What if they say no or they don't do it?
then we find them out of
You
existence.
find them. Oh,
yeah,
good.
yeah,
good,
we
good.
find them
so
out of
you got
existence.
a carrot first, and then there's a stick.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So we start finding them, and those fines increase. Every first 3 months are the same, and then the last 2 months they're different, and then after 5 months or 5 of similar evictions within 1 year.
Similar fines. You mean?
Yeah, yeah. I'm sorry, similar fines.
Then there's an eviction.
Yeah, there's eviction. Exactly.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Interesting. So you've
Yep.
got that. Your lease documentation has that type
Yep.
of language in it. Good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because without that,
Yeah.
the residents just run you over.
So
and-
what's the worst thing that's happened from an asset management standpoint in one of your parks? Because there's tons of them, I know. But what's the worst? It comes or top 2 or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I just told a story on LinkedIn actually that I got a call about 1 a.m. in February from one of our managers, actually at that same park that the lady that looked like Brian Urlacher was at.
Right.
That there was a guy. My manager woke up to somebody tapping on the side of a unit in the property, and there was a guy with an axe and a gas can.
Oh, good Lord.
And so she asked me, what I should do, and I said, "Did you call the police?" And she said, "No, I haven't called the police." And I said, I won't swear on here, but I said, "What do I look like, Billy the effing Kid?
Right,
what do you want me to go down there with my 6-shooter and blast him out of his shoes?" You know,
My brother
You know,
my brother laughs about that all the time because even the managers in these parks, sometimes they need some help.
Yeah.
As evidenced by what you just said.
Yeah.
It's like there's a common sense missing in that case, but yeah.
And we've had everything else under the sun. We've had homes catch on fire, right? And we've had trees fall through units. We've had, we had our first portfolio that Jason talked about. We had a guy steal a truck from a gas station down the street, drive it up, try and evade the police through a park that's right next door to our park.
Okay.
He drove the truck all the way through one of the homes, through our fence, and into the back of one of our residents' homes. This is like middle of the day.
Wow.
And then again, same sort of thing. Manager called me up. "Tyler, there's a truck in the back of one of our residents' homes. All the cops are here." And I said the same thing. Like, what do you want me to do? What is this, the Wild West? What do you want me to? The police are there. I can't do anything.
Yeah. Wow,
So
that's funny.
yeah, there's a lot
That's
of.
funny.
Again, we bought headaches, but we bought headaches because we thought the returns were going to be there.
Sure.
So
do you have like a training program or a training curriculum for your managers when they come online?
Yes, but we definitely need to work on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things I did, in advance of getting into the business, is I actually created a whole training thing. I don't know if I still have it. If I do, I'd give it to you. But every business is nothing but people and systems. You got to train the people, and you've got to have the systems, and that's a critical piece of this for sure. Would you agree with me? Finding good managers is one of the toughest things you do.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That's my brother tells me the same thing. And you go through people and all that.
I was actually listening to your guy, your podcast last night about the airline pilot.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, E-Myth. I actually just ordered that book last night.
E-Myth's a great book, Michael Gerber, about systemizing your business. That was Steve Rosenberg. Yeah, a sad story about his boy. Did you hear the whole thing?
I did not.
If you listen to the whole episode, it's pretty gripping. Yeah, I won't taint this one with that, but yeah. But anyway, every business is nothing but people and systems. So if you get that right, and you get the right people, like Brooke up there behind the desk, hiding behind the desk, and then you put the right systems in place, then you've really got a home run. But so what do you think is going to happen in the whole mobile home park industry? Because you really can't build them anymore. Nobody's allowing them, and nobody wants a mobile home park in their backyard. So what do you see for the industry? Do you think there's still deals out there?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I think there's deals. I mean, it's actually funny. Our pipeline's like kind of the fullest it's ever been because nobody's calling anymore. So these owners we've been following up with for 3 or 4 years are now calling us, being like, "Well,
wow.
Hey, I want to sell," And so we're negotiating some interesting owner financing and stuff like that. So the industry, I think it's a good time to buy, as long as you can find some good seller carry or have a park that's discounted enough to make the debt service work.
Interesting. So it's one or the other typically.
Yes.
Okay, so it's either seller financing. Oh, because of the interest rates right now. Got
Right.
it. Okay.
Yeah.
Duh. Okay, I didn't even make that connection right there. Okay. Yeah. Sure.
Yeah, and and I think the state of the industry is really interesting with parks right now, because there's less than 10% institutional ownership, and so there's a lot of opportunity for people that maybe that don't have as much capital to go out or don't want to partner with 6 or 7 people to maybe go out and buy an apartment complex.
That can go out and buy a mobile home park.
Yeah, like we bought 22 spaces for $289,000.
Okay, but. Don't buy 22 freaking spaces.
Yeah, that's
okay,
fair.
buy
That's
at least
fair.
a 50 unit.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're going to be managing it, and I can't think of a worse nightmare than that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree with you. And I love the business. I actually love the mobile home park business, and I regret not trying to do both at the same time. But there's only one of me to go around. So, but. So you're seeing deal flow.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Well, and I think there's going to be more consolidation in the future.
You know, that's interesting you say that, because I was just talking about Kevin Buff's got a huge deal they're trying to take down right now.
Yeah.
I don't remember how many spaces.
750
spaces. I mean, that is an institutional grade deal.
Yeah.
I know they've had a couple of hiccups. My brother was telling me, but huge equity raise on that thing. But he's doing it. So.
Yeah, and that's the type of deals.
Is that your goal as well? Is that what you guys see yourself wanting to do? Get some bigger deals?
Yeah, we absolutely do. So, and the only reason our deals worked kind of in the Little Rock area is because we got some economies of scale. So we're the largest private owner in Little Rock, and we're the largest private owner in the state right now.
Nice.
There's some publicly traded companies that are killing us out there, right? That own way more units than we do.
Right.
But right now, that's what we are. And
so
we own
economies of scale, like with your maintenance and your how else does that come into play? Management as well. Maybe?
Management, yeah, because you really can't hire somebody. Like if you think about that, like if you bought a 20 space mobile home park, it's $350 a month, or a 20 door apartment building that's $1,000 a month, right? Those fixed costs just for basic fixed costs, like paying a living wage to a manager. Right.
No, you can't. Even a 20-unit apartment complex, you've got to hire a management company. You're going to pay probably 10% management fee or 7% management fee, because they've got to go do the showings. They've got to coordinate all the maintenance. They've got to handle everything that an on-site person would handle if you could afford an on-site person.
Right.
Now, I used to tell people you need 88 apartments to have it make sense, but with rents going up as high as they have, you can have on-site people with less than that now. But do you think it's 50 for mobile homes, or do you think it's less?
It's probably, for paying a living wage, it's probably a little more, actually.
It's more than that.
It's probably 75, 80. I mean, just in the Little Rock area.
Wow.
I mean, we've got 400 units in Little Rock, and they're all within kind of 5 miles of each other. And we just kind of got to the $60,000 for one manager that kind of circles around.
Like a regional that's managing all the
little guys, the 18 space, the 22 space, the 68, so she bounces around all these different parks. So, but then again, there's own the logistical nightmares there too. They say that gas is so high now that they want to stipend.
Of course. Now have you got maintenance on your payroll?
We do.
Yeah, of course you do. Okay, good.
And they travel actually all around the state for us. So,
do they? Okay,
yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
Well, listen, guys, I really appreciate you coming down here. This has been a lot of fun, and I can't wait to see you get to the 100,000 units. When you hit let's say 10,000, I want you back. Yeah. At that point, we'll have 2 microphones. Okay, I promise. Yeah. But it's a pleasure to meet you both, and I appreciate you coming down.
Hey, Rod, thank you so much.
Absolutely.
So one other quick thing. We encounter so many people that are frankly frustrated. They're looking in the mirror and they're frustrated that they haven't been able to escape the rat race. They haven't been able to build cash flow to the point where they're able to have financial and time freedom with their families. And maybe they see other people buying real estate and creating, incredible cash flow, and they think, well, it's just scary. Buying apartments is intimidating. And I get it. See, that's why we created our Warrior Mentorship Program. They're our coaching students, and they've had extraordinary results. My students, I've been teaching about 5 years, and they own upwards of 140,000 units now that we know of, right? And we feel like it's just getting going. Now, we're looking to grow this group and really take it to the next level. And honestly believe that the greatest transfer of wealth could be upon us right now with this current economic environment. Everything's going on sale. So we're looking for people who want to follow a proven framework, really like a blueprint or a map, literally step by step. And then they're able to leverage our systems and our incredible network to raise money and equity, to find deals and close those deals and build partnerships, really nationwide. So if you're interested in finding out more about how you can become more in our incredible network and take advantage of the unbelievable opportunities that are upon us, you can apply to my Warrior Mentorship Program by texting the word CRUSH to 72345, or you can go to mentorwithrod.com. And what we'll do is we'll set up a call so you can check us out and we can check you out and see if it's a fit. Now again, you can go to mentorwithrod.com or text the word CRUSH to 72345 to apply, and we will speak soon.